Welcome back to my channel. My name is LaShawn, and this is Poly Talk with LaShawn. Let's get into it. So I know it has been quite some time since I have been here on YouTube. And if you have been following me for a long time, then you know that this tends to happen maybe once or twice a year where I take an extended break from this platform. And it's the same thing this time. Life happened, a lot happened, and I just did not have the resources to pour into YouTube. But I am at a place right now where I feel like I can do that, and I am excited to be back on this platform and hopefully back permanently. We'll see. I'm not going to make any promises, but we'll see. That being said, there has been a lot of exciting changes in my personal life. First and foremost, I am engaged. I am scheduled to be a 2026 bride, and I'm super duper excited. My setting has changed, as you guys can see. I have a different background. I'm still here in Tennessee. I'm just in a different part of the state. And obviously, as you can tell by the introduction, I have retired Lush Uncut and moved on to Poly Talk. The reason for that change is because I felt like I have matured and evolved as a commentator and someone that loves to digest this type of content and also produce this type of content. And I just wanted a change. I just wanted a change of vibes, and you know, it just felt like a change in the name for my show, and all of that was just completely necessary. The backstory behind the name Poly Talk isn't very long. My fiance went to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT suggested Poly Talk as an option. He sent it to me. I was like, fine, whatever. I'm still not crazy about it, but it was the best of all the suggestions from the AI. Yeah, let's get into today's video. So I was trying to figure out what to talk about today because there's so much going on, and there has also been a lot that I have missed in the last, since I've uploaded a video here on YouTube. And I was just like, dang, should I talk about a story that happened months ago, or should I talk about something that recently happened? Like, what do I want to talk about? And I went back and forth with that for a very long time, hence why I am finally uploading a video. And I decided a couple of days ago, I was like, LaShawn, just choose something, talk about it, and let's just go from there. So today we are going to talk about two things. Number one is AOC and Bernie Sanders CNN town hall that they had. I think it was earlier this week. And also the mayoral debate that happened in NYC between Zora, Mamdani, Couno, and Siwa. I'm going to play a couple of clips from those and talk about it. Now, the reason I decided to talk about these two things is, one, because I feel like, especially with the clips that I've chosen, they reflect a lot of what's going on in this country politically and culturally and socially. Before I kind of get into that, there is something that I want to talk about that I missed, with not being on YouTube these last couple of months, and that is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, I know it's been, in 2025 standards, a very long time since it's happened, even though it's only been, 6, or I know it's been less than 2 months. It hasn't even been like 6 weeks, I think. But obviously, I was, like many of you, I'm sure, devastated, and I still feel like it hasn't really completely registered that Charlie Kirk is not here anymore. I'm not going to really go too far into that, but I do want to remind us to not let the effects of that just dwindle away, because I feel like when something like this happens, something that's major and just, culturally and politically impactful, as time goes on, it starts to kind of just like fade away. When I say it, I mean, again, the effects, the I think like revival that's coming from it, like all the positive things that by the grace of God has managed to emerge from such a terrible situation. I just want us to stay inspired, stay motivated, continue to grow in our faith, get married, have kids, and all of those things. And I don't know about you, but I had no idea just how big Charlie was and how impactful his life was, and therefore his death was. I know for me, it was just and it still is a bit much. But anyway, I just wanted to say that because I just couldn't move on without like taking my little, time out. I know I have a super small channel, but I felt like I just had to do that. So moving on. I'm just gonna jump right into it with the clips, and we're gonna go from there. I don't really want to take too much time like introducing this clip and that clip and blah, 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 blah. We're just gonna get into it. I am gonna start with AOC and Bernie. So this is them, I think, AOC mostly talking about the government shutdown.
I hope is that we're able to resolve this as quickly as possible. I'm ready to negotiate. Bernie's ready to negotiate. I mean, we are all open and ready to.
Is anyone actually negotiating right now?
No, but let's.
Hear from
Let me reiterate one point. Republicans aren't in town. How do you negotiate with people who refuse even to show up to do their job? They're on vacation for what, a month now?
Yes. House Republicans have been on vacation for over.
But the Republican senators are here, and House Speaker Mike Johnson, we've had him on. He said, we've done our job. We passed the clean CR in the House. It's now up to the Senate to make these negotiations.
They need to pick up a phone, Caitlin. They need to pick up a phone. They're saying that they're doing all this work. They are twiddling their thumbs and talking to each other.
So clearly AOC is vying for a 2028 presidential run, which is, not much of a surprise if you have been tracking her political career or whatever. I think it's very interesting that her and Bernie have kind of teamed up to push her and to get her ready for her run in 2028. I think it's kind of cute that Bernie kind of tapped her on the shoulder and said, you know what, you get to take over the leftist socialist movement in this country. You are going to be the leader, and I'm going to help you there. And I don't know if that's going to be a positive for her politically, because this type of politics that they're playing is very, very played out. Maybe in 2020 or maybe 2022, this would have made some type of impact with the voters. And by this type of politics, I'm talking about this like the Republicans are bad. There's nothing that we're doing everything right, and like this overshadowing and this overcasting of what's really happening to favor the Democrats. At the end of the day, the Democrats are in very much of a political pickle, to say the least, and they have to take a stand somewhere. And it looks like they have decided to use the government shutdown as that line that they're drawing in the sand. Unfortunately for them, most Americans are under the impression, at least to my knowledge or from, what I've been gathering with people around me, that the reason for this shutdown is that Democrats are not willing to budge on the healthcare for illegal migrants. And immigration was something that Donald Trump ran on and won on. So this is not a winning argument to, to the general American public to say, hey, we have to shut down our federal government so that illegal migrants can have health care. Whether or not that is what's happening in the minds of these Democrat politicians, that's what's happening in the minds of most Americans. And that's what matters more than anything else. So they can scream and say the Republicans are not doing their job. They've advocated. And the fact that abdicated. Why did I say that? Anyway, the fact that the Republicans seem to be very nonchalant about this really reflects the political power balance. The Republicans clearly feel like they can afford to take whatever negative impact on their party that this shutdown is causing. The Democrats don't have much to lose. So they're taking a pretty big gamble, and I don't think it's working out in their favor. This is a clip of her, and this one has gone pretty viral on X, of her talking about how young men are being indoctrinated online by toxic masculinity and yada, yada, yada. Let's take a look.
And they are able to radicalize and target and exploit a generation of young boys, in particular, away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others who are poorer, browner, darker, or a different gender than them. And that is why they are resonating online, because they are appealing to the most basest and worst parts of human nature to
So again, she's got it all wrong. This is what I'm talking about, their brand of leftist politics. Like, people have moved past this point, especially young men, of looking at masculinity as quote unquote toxic. And what she needs to recognize is that the motivation that these young men are feeling towards these hyper masculine figures like the Andrew Tates and the Andrew Schultz and like even people like Jordan Peterson and all of these like very, again, hyper masculine men, that are in the podcast space or in the online space or whatever, is that they are validating a lot of their frustrations, which people like AOC are refusing to do. And on top of that, they're giving them something to aspire to, and they're not making them feel bad for being men. So when AOC says, oh, they're just appealing to basically the worst parts of these young men, stop making it seem as if a young man who has decided to actively embrace his masculinity is somehow inherently taking advantage of other, marginalized groups. And it's very funny how she laid out people that are poorer or different genders or browner than them. This identity politics that has failed the Democrats. They need to stop it. It's not working. It's not working. I think the only brand, and we're going to talk about this a little later, of leftist politics that starts to get any traction is this class warfare that, Zohran Mamdani has started, where it's not necessarily, black and brown and indigenous and queer and all of these marginalized people against the straight white men. It's the rich and the poor against, it's the rich and, and the poor against one another. The class warfare is going to be their next brand of leftist politics. And AOC and Bernie Sanders are looking very outdated with some of the things that they're saying, because it has no impact anymore, and they need to recognize that. As I was watching, because I did watch a portion of the town hall beyond the clips that I just showed you, and it seems as if Bernie's sitting there like, should I have chose someone else? Is Alexandra really going to do it? Am I wasting my time? I could have had a V8. Moving on to the NYC mayoral debate. Now, as you may know, Mr. Mamdani has made quite a name for himself. And it looks like he is going to take the position as New York City's next mayor. Obviously, he's a very, very controversial political figure because he is a self-declared and proud Democrat socialist. For a city like New York, that's basically like oil and water, which they don't mix. However, it seems as if he's going to be mayor, and there's a lot going on there. So I'm just gonna jump into it. So this is Zohran Mamdani talking about how he is going to be paying for his free buses, which is one of his major campaign promises to New Yorkers, that they will no longer be required to pay for MTA bus rides. Let's take a look.
Let's talk about free buses. Mr. Mamdani, this is a centerpiece of your campaign. Can you explain how you will make buses free? You have 30 seconds to answer.
Absolutely. We will make buses free by replacing the revenue that the MTA currently gets from buses. This is revenue that's around $700 million or so. That's less money than Andrew Cuomo gave to Elon Musk in $959 million in tax credits when he was the governor. And the reason that we will do so is that making buses free doesn't just provide economic relief, but also public safety. Because what we've seen is that it decreases assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%. New Yorkers deserve more than the slowest buses in the country.
So he said something there about the free buses reducing assaults on bus drivers by like 39% or whatever the number is that he said. The reason for that is because bus drivers are no longer asking people to pay their fare on the buses. As you know, or maybe you don't know, maybe you're new here, but I am a former New Yorker. I moved from Queens to Nashville about 3 years ago at this point. I grew up in New York City. I grew up taking the subway to high school every day. I am very, very, very familiar with New York City. And I remember during COVID, because I was there, the city stopped requiring people to pay their fare for the buses. So you will walk on the bus and you would not have to pay. Now, you cannot implement something like that in a city like New York City and then try to take it back. So when they attempted to take it back, and the bus drivers were actually asking people, hey, would you mind paying to ride this bus as you are supposed to? Because this is New York City, not everybody was very compliant, and the assaults against bus drivers went up. Now, if you no longer require people to pay, then those interactions don't happen anymore. So it's not a matter of, oh, people are just, you make the buses free and then all of a sudden magically bus drivers aren't getting into, physical alterations with passengers. That's not a reflection of the benefits of free buses. It's a reflection of the lack of law and order in the city, which free buses is only going to exaggerate because it's going to become roaming homeless shelters. Like, that's just common sense. But, we're talking about a democratic socialist, and common sense is not really their forte. He also mentioned that he's going to pay for the lack of revenue, or he's going to replace the revenue that the MTA was getting from the buses by raising corporate tax, or basically just taxing the 1%. The fact that he feels like that is resonating with New Yorkers, to me, is like just marvelous. The fact that there's people that's actually buying into I'm only going to tax the super rich people in 2025 is nuts. So I ventured onto the website for the Office of the New York State Comptroller Thomas P. Donnelly, and an article popped up talking about the shifting in the revenue streams for the MTA. With paid ridership and fare collections down, taxes and fees on businesses and consumers are paying a growing share of the MTA's operating budget. In 2024, 70% of the MTA's revenue came from taxes and fees on businesses and other employers, mostly from the payroll mobility tax on employers in the MTA region and corporate surcharges. The largest and a growing portion of this amount comes from the payroll mobility tax, which grew 41% from $1.3 billion in 2012 to $1.8 billion in 2022. So basically, what they're doing is they're forcing employers to foot the bill of the MTA, because if you have a business or a corporation that is within the operating space of the MTA, basically you have to pay a tax because your employees are using the MTA to get back and forth. And the city has raised those taxes to help with the gap that has been created with the low ridership that's happened from the pandemic and seems to have continued on even after the pandemic. So the idea that Zoram is just going to replace basically 30% of the MTA's budget, not the MTA's, but yeah, the MTA's budget with more taxes is insane. Because again, in 2024, 70% of the MTA's revenue came from taxes and fees on businesses. So the 30% came from the fares. And if he's going to make those buses free, then that 30%, or at least a portion of that 30%, is going to have to be covered with more taxes. And again, if you still believe that it's only going to be the 1% or the billionaires that are going to be paying these taxes, you need to wake up, because it's going to go to small businesses, because I'm sure there are small businesses that are operating within the region of the MTA that are paying this payroll taxes, that are going to have pay more taxes to the city so that people can ride the buses for free. With New York and the potential for a Zoram Mamdani mayor situation, I have come to the point where I respect the fact that we live in a democratic country, and that is on a federal, a state, and a local level, which means the people are going to vote for what the people want. And if New Yorkers want to vote in a democratic socialist that is objectively going to make their lives more financially difficult, and not just financially, we're talking about public safety. This man has, even on yesterday's debate, when he had that interview with Fox News, the host, I forgot her name, asked him if he wanted to apologize for some of the things that he has said in the past about, the NYPD and policing in general. And he apologized. But if you think that this man is going to be on the side of law and order, then you have got yourself deceived. New York is going to be worse. But at the end of the day, like I said, we live in a democracy. You vote for what you get, and if you don't vote, then you're not saying that you don't want it. Because I think there's a lot of people when, things start getting bad, they're going to say, oh, I never voted for him. by not voting, you have voted. Okay, so that's that. Now, that's all I have for you guys today. This went on way longer than I intended it to, and I do apologize. But if you stayed all the way through the end, thank you for taking the time out to actually watch this entire video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead, like, subscribe, throw something in the comment section. I'm going to try to edit this down, and I guess I will see you next time. Thank you for your time and your attention. Remember to be blessed and be a blessing.